Good morning class, good morning students. Now what we are starting with is our new unit, okay? That is new topic in our chapter and I am dealing with class 9th. So we have done till here that what do you mean by solutions and everything in the last video. Now what we are starting is the next part of the chapter. This is for class 9th. It is chapter 2nd, that is matter around us pure? So we have already started the chapter. You can watch the previous video. Is matter around us pure? In this, we studied different categories of matter. That is, what do you mean by the term matter? Then we studied solutions. Okay, what do you mean by solutions? Now what we are starting, we have already seen in the previous video about the properties of solution. Okay, now we'll study solutions in detail. Solutions, I have already told you. Solution is an homogeneous mixture of two or more than two components. Yes, solution is a homogeneous mixture of two or more than two components. And solution is made up of basically two parts. One part is called solute, one part is called solvent. Here only at the topic of solute and solvent we left our last video. So we are continuing that what do you mean by solute and solvent? Solution means, or the solution contains two elements, solute and solvent. What do you understand by the term solute? Solute, which is taken in smaller quantity, I have already told, solute is taken in smaller amount or smaller quantity. And here solvent is something which is taken in excess or which is taken in larger quantity. So solvent is often taken in the larger quantity. Okay, solute is taken in smaller quantity and solvent is taken in larger quantities. Then solute, what do you mean actually by the term solute? Solute is something which gets dissolved. Okay, I am repeating, solute is something which gets dissolved. And what do you mean by solvent? The medium in which the solute dissolves is called solvent. So solute is the element or the substance. It is the substance which gets dissolved. Substance which gets dissolved. And solvent is the medium. Solvent is the medium in which a solute dissolves. So solvent is always present in larger quantity and solute is taken in small quantity. So this was the basic difference which we were discussing in the previous video or previous section, the term solute and solvent. These solute and solvent comprises or combines to give a solution. Now what we'll start is with the examples. Let me give you some examples of solute and solvent. So firstly taking an example of solution. For example, let's say solution is something like tincture of iodine. Tincture of iodine. What do you mean by tincture of iodine? It is a kind of solution. How it is made? When iodine is taken and dissolved in alcohol, then the solution formed is called tincture of iodine. Okay, got it? So tincture of iodine, I said iodine is dissolved in alcohol. Tincture of iodine means iodine in alcohol. So can any one of you tell what is the solute here and what is the solvent? You have two components. One is iodine and the next is alcohol. And I'm saying tincture of iodine, the solution is formed when we take iodine and dissolve it in alcohol. So here as you can see, what is our solute? Solute is iodine. And what is our solvent? The solvent is alcohol. Because for making tincture of iodine, what we do is we take a beaker and we take alcohol in it. So alcohol here behaves as a solvent because it is taken in very large quantity or in excess amount, and we put iodine in it. So these are the drops of iodine solution. As you can see, the comparative account of alcohol and iodine. Iodine is present in small amount, so here iodine behaves as our solute, and because alcohol is present in larger quantity, so alcohol behaves as a solvent. So this was an example of solution. We can have one more example, and I would like that you tell me what is solute and solvent here. Okay. Let's say we have aerated drinks. Aerated drinks is also an example of solution. Aerated drinks, you all drink the cold drinks. Aerated drinks are basically called cold drinks. Okay, what is present? In the drinks, there is a liquid solution, the sugar or the sweet syrup solution, and then we add carbon dioxide gas to it. So this becomes a aerated drink. So aerated drink is nothing but the solution of carbon dioxide, which is abbreviated as CO2, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide in the liquid drink makes it aerated. So can you guess what is the solute and what is the solvent? Either CO2 would be the solute or this liquid sweet drink. Yes, correct. CO2 is a solute here because it is added in smaller quantity in very less amount, and the liquid or the drink is what? It is our solvent. So here CO2 behaves as the solute and the liquid is solvent. Okay. So this was all about solutions. We studied solutions, their properties in the last, that these are homogeneous mixtures, their particle size is very small, then these cannot scatter the beam of light. Okay. In short, we can say they do not show Tyndall effect. Then we said the particles are so smaller in size that we are not able to see them with our naked eyes. We need a microscope. I also gave you an example that salt solution, presence of salt or salt dissolved in water is also an example of solution. Yes, because can you see once you mix the salt in water, can you see the salt particles? Can you identify, yes, this is the molecule of salt, this is the molecule of H2O? No, it is not possible. So salt solution is an example of solution. The particles of solution can't be seen with naked eyes. These all I have discussed in the previous lecture. So this was the two components, that a solute and solvent of the solution with their respective examples. Now we'll discuss the types of solution. Now we have types of solution. Before actually starting this, there a term comes in some reference books or exams. What do you mean by true solution? And the students get confused. Ma'am hasn't told true solution. True solution is nothing. It is actually a solution. Okay. True solution means the chemical which obeys all the properties of a solution is called true solution. If some chemical obeys only one or two or some of the properties and does not follows all the properties, then it is regarded as solution. So now basically starting with types of solution. So types of solution are of two types. Solutions are basically divided into two types, that is saturated solutions and the next is unsaturated solutions. So here we have two categories of our solution, that is saturated and unsaturated. Saturated solution. What is saturated solution? Saturated solution is a solution in which no more solute can be dissolved in the given quantity of solvent. So saturated solution means the solutions, the type of solution in which no more solute can be dissolved. Okay, So this is what saturated solution means. Saturated solution is the solution in which no more solute can be dissolved, and the important term here is at a given temperature or at a fixed temperature. So such solutions are known as saturated, and unsaturated is just the reverse of this. That is, when more amount of solute can be dissolved, in the given quantity of solvent, then such solutions are called unsaturated solutions. And the important term here is also that at a fixed temperature or at certain given temperature. When more amount of solute, we can add solute in the given quantity of solvent, then it becomes an unsaturated solution. For example, let's suppose we have a beaker here, okay, and we have filled water in it. We have the molecules of water filled in a beaker. Let's suppose the volume of water or the amount of water is 100 ml. We took 100 ml beaker and filled it with 100 ml water. Now what? If I try to add solute in this, and let's suppose I am adding sugar. Sugar is my solute. So when I mix sugar in it, it would dissolve. If you add sugar in your beaker and give it a mix, it would disappear or it would dissolve. And we know, where does this sugar go? Why does it disappear? These sugar molecules occupy the spaces which are present between the water molecules. You all know this? Okay, if I add here 2 spoons of sugar, it would readily get dissolved, okay, in the beaker, in the water. But if I keep on adding more sugar, let's suppose I have added now 10 spoons. I have added 10 spoons of sugar, and these 10 spoons of sugar are dissolved because they have occupied all the vacant spaces which were present between the water molecules. The spaces, the empty space between the water molecules is occupied by sugars. So this sugar occupies all the intermolecular spaces present between water molecules. And if when I add 10 spoons of sugar and all the space is used up, now if I add one more spoon, that is I add the 11th spoon of sugar, will it dissolve? The answer is absolutely no. This sugar would not get dissolved, okay, because all the vacant spaces has already been occupied. The sugar which we added occupied all the vacant spaces. So now there is no space left for the next spoon. So this 11th spoon of sugar does not get dissolved. Either it comes and occupies the bottom surface of the beaker. So such solutions which are filled up completely, their intermolecular spaces or the vacant spaces are occupied, then no more amount of sugar can be dissolved in such solutions. So these solutions are called saturated. So saturated solutions ऐसे solutions जिनमें हम एक particular temperature पर और solute mix नहीं कर सकते, these solutions are called saturated. Okay, because I added 10 spoons of sugar and जब 11th spoon sugar मिलाई, it is not dissolving, it is settled at the bottom of the beaker. So such solutions are called saturated. And what do you mean by unsaturated? Unsaturated means if I have a beaker here which is filled with water, I take a beaker, fill it with water. The quantity of water is same, that is we have 100 ml of water. If I continue to add sugar, let's suppose I have added 7 spoons of sugar in this beaker. I have already added 7 spoons. Okay, these sugar molecules, where they will go? They will occupy the space. Similar to this example, these 7 spoons sugar will occupy the space or the intermolecular spaces present between the water molecules. But you know that some intermolecular spaces are still left vacant. So some sugar can more be added to fill up these spaces. So what we do is, If there is some chance of adding more solute to completely fill the intermolecular spaces, then such solutions are known as unsaturated. अनसैचुरेटेड ऐसे सॉल्यूशंस जिनमें हम और सॉल्यूट ऐड कर सकते हैं, अभी उनकी इंटरमॉलिक्यूलर स्पेसेस पूरी तरह से फिल नहीं हुई हैं, उन्हें कहते हैं अनसैचुरेटेड सॉल्यूशंस. लाइक इस 100 ml वाटर में द शुगर विच वी कैन ऐड इज 10 spoons. This I am only taking an example that in 100 ml if we can add 10 spoons and I have only mixed 7 spoons of sugar, then such solutions जिसमें और कैपेसिटी है solute को dissolve करने की, such solutions are termed unsaturated. So this was the basic categories of solutions, that is saturated and unsaturated solutions. And I told you what does a true solution means. True solution means that solution which follows or obeys all the properties of a solution. The properties of solution are what? We discussed in the last lecture, last video, okay, that they cannot be seen by naked eyes. The particles are very small in size, that is the size of particles is 1 nanometers. And what does 1 nanometer means? 10 to the power minus 9 meter symbolizes 1 nanometer. So this is all the account of solutions. Now we'll discuss the next topic, that is suspension. Solutions we have already done. Now the second comes suspensions. So I'll take a comparative account of both the things, that is suspension, and the third one is colloidal solutions. This is colloidal solutions. Colloidal solutions in short are also regarded as colloids. Okay, in short we can say colloids. So we'll discuss a comparative detailed account of suspension and colloidal solution here. So the first point is suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. Suspension is what? Suspension is a heterogeneous mixture. We saw solutions in the last topic. Solutions were homogeneous, and I already discussed what do you mean by homogeneous and heterogeneous. So suspension is a heterogeneous mixture, and colloids also show heterogeneity, that is these are also heterogeneous. So colloidal solution is also a kind of heterogeneous mixture. What do you understand by heterogeneous mixtures? Heterogeneous mixtures are those mixtures which are non-uniform in their composition. Their composition is not similar from top to bottom or in the whole volume of solution. So both these suspension and colloidal solution are heterogeneous. The next point of difference is suspension. It is a type of mixture. I am basically writing the definition of suspension. Suspension is a type of mixture in which the particles are suspended throughout the bulk of the medium. Suspension is an homogeneous mixture in which the particles are suspended throughout the bulk of the medium, or you can say throughout the volume of the medium. So this is what suspension means. The particles of suspension are not completely dissolved. The particles are suspended. Okay, they are not dissolved, they are suspended throughout the bulk of the solution or throughout the bulk of the given medium. And what does colloids mean? How could we define colloids? So colloids is a type of mixture. It is a type of mixture in which the particles of the mixture continuously move around. Their particles are not at rest. Their particles completely move around in zigzag manner. Okay? in a zigzag manner, and this type of motion or movement is called Brownian motion. It is termed as Brownian motion. So the important point is, what do you mean by colloids? Colloids is a type of mixture in which the particles are again not dissolved. In both these cases, the particles are not dissolved in the solvent as we saw in the solutions. So their particles exhibit a continuous random motion. Okay, let's suppose I have a colloid here. I have the particles of colloid in the beaker. So this colloidal solution would not remain at rest. It would exhibit a zigzag motion. All these particles will move randomly, and this zigzag motion is called Brownian motion. This zigzag motion is termed as Brownian motion, and this Brownian motion is responsible for the stability of colloidal solution. So this was the example of Brownian motion. Now we are discussing the third point. Suspensions are relatively unstable in nature. They are relatively unstable, whereas colloids are quite stable. They are stable type of mixture or solution, and they exhibit stability. What do you mean by unstable and stable? This I'll explain as the next point. Here unstable means when suspension is left, when it is left undisturbed for some time. When you leave the suspension undisturbed for some time, then the particles of suspension will settle at the bottom. Okay, then particles present in the suspension, the suspended particles settle at the bottom. They settle down, and now the suspension gets destroyed. That is, now this suspension is no more present. It changes its form. So suspension when left undisturbed, suppose you take a beaker. Example of suspension. Most common example is sand in water. This is the most common example you can learn for suspension. If you take a glass filled with water, could put some sand in the water. Okay, what do you observe? एक बार जब हमने sand डाल के mix कर दी, the whole solution would appear dirty. Then, if you leave the sand solution, you take a glass of water, fill it with sand, then it would behave as a suspension. But you keep the glass untouched or undisturbed, let's say for 5 to 10 minutes. After 5 to 10 minutes, what you get? You get that all the sand which was dissolved settles at the bottom, and we are left with the clear liquid upwards. Okay, you have read this process. It is called sedimentation. You might have read this in classes 7th and 8th. What do you mean by sedimentation? If you take a glass of water, dissolve the sand in it, and you leave it undisturbed for 10 to 15 minutes. After that, what do you observe? You observe that the whole of the sand gets settled down at the bottom of the glass or bottom of the container, and above what you have is a clear, clean liquid. So this is actually the sedimentation process which I am trying to explain you. So suspension is relatively unstable. Relatively unstable means when it is left undisturbed, the particles will settle at the bottom and the suspension nature will get destroyed. Whereas in colloids, we said that colloids are stable. What does the term stable means? Stable means that when colloids are left undisturbed, when colloids are left undisturbed for certain time, colloids are left undisturbed for some time, then they do not settle at the bottom. Remember this, they do not settle. Okay. whereas suspension particles settle down at the bottom of the beaker and colloidal particles do not settle down. So we say that the colloidal nature is not being disturbed. So these colloids are called stable solutions. This is the difference between suspension and colloid. And for an example, you can take colloid as milk. So milk is an example of colloids. So by far we have discussed 4 points plus one example which you can add into the 5th point of difference. So the points were suspension and colloids both are heterogeneous mixtures, that is they will separate into different layers. Then we saw that suspension is a mixture in which particles are not dissolved but they are suspended in the medium, they are spread in the medium. Whereas in the colloids the particles continuously show a motion and this motion is called Brownian motion. Then suspension is comparatively unstable whereas colloids show stable behavior. Suspension, the particles settle down at the bottom when you leave the suspension for some time, whereas in colloids the particles do not separate out into layers. Okay, so we say colloids are stable. Then we saw example of suspension as sand dissolved in the given quantity of water, whereas colloidal solution example is milk. Now some more points are there in suspension and colloidal solution. 5 points of difference we have already discussed. I am continuing the slide. Suspension and colloids. Colloids means colloidal solution. The next point of difference would be the 6th point, that is suspension. They show, or we can write, they scatter a beam of light passing through them. They scatter the beam of light passing through them. Okay. And this scattering of beam of light, this effect is called Tyndall effect. So they show Tyndall effect. Colloids also exhibit Tyndall effect. So same is the property with colloids. Suppose you take milk. Milk is an example of colloid. And you pass a beam of light. Then this beam of light on passing with the colloid scatters in different direction. It spreads out. So this colloidal solution, this effect of scattering is called Tyndall effect. It is known as Tyndall effect. What is Tyndall effect? Now can you define? Yes, the scattering of beam of light. This is a beam of light. When a beam of light passes through a colloidal solution, then the beam gets spread out or scattered in different directions. This phenomenon is called Tyndall effect. It is named on the basis of scientists who discovered this effect. So this is what Tyndall effect is. It is a very important effect and the questions are very frequently asked in exams that state Tyndall effect, give it some examples. So one example which you can give is the colloidal solution example, and the other example you can give when sunlight. The example of Tyndall effect is when the sunlight passes through a dense canopy of forest. Dense canopy of forest. Then it shows scattering of light and this is called Tyndall effect. One more example you can give. Let's suppose you enter a dark room where no light source is present and from a very small aperture or hole the rays of light come in the room. Then what do you observe? Do the rays come in the form of a single beam or do the rays scatter? Yes, every time the rays entering a dark room from a very small light source get scattered or spread in different directions. So this is also a kind of Tyndall effect. Now we were discussing, so in this point what we would write is, we can write colloids exhibit Tyndall effect. Okay. Like suspension, colloids also exhibit Tyndall effect. So here the 6th point would be colloids also exhibit Tyndall effect or the scattering of light. Now the next point. The next point here is, as we discussed the particles of suspension, the size of particles of suspension is big. Size of particles of suspension is comparatively larger. Okay, it is large. Whereas the size of colloids, it is smaller in size. And what you can write more clearly, that size of colloids, the particles, size of, I may write the size of particles of colloids. The size of particles of colloids are greater than the solution, greater than the solution particles or solution, but less than suspension. But these are less than suspension. So this is what a colloid means. The particles of colloids are greater than, the particles of colloid are greater than the particle size which we observed in solutions, but they are smaller than the particles of suspension. Now the next point would be, the particles are large, so we can easily see the particles. Particles can be easily seen with naked eyes. Okay, but in case of colloids, these particles can't be seen or can't be viewed with naked eyes, or we would require a microscope to view the particles. This means the particles are small enough that we are not able to see them with our naked eyes, but they are large enough that they show scattering. So these are the points. One more point is left. I'll write it at the top. 9th point. The particles of suspension, they can be filtered or they can be separated by filtration. Suspension can be separated into different particles by the method of filtration, while the colloids, these can't be separated by filtration, can't be separated by filtration. But we can separate the colloids with one more technique, and that technique of separation is called centrifugation. So we can use centrifugation to separate the particles. Okay, so they cannot be separated by filtration, but they can be separated by centrifugation. And this centrifugation technique is very important. We will deal with the different types of techniques in the next section. That is, we have to deal with evaporation, sublimation, and there a technique would come, centrifugation. Now I am only giving a rough idea. What do you mean by centrifugation? Centrifugation is when you separate two components on the basis of their density gradients. Okay, that means for using centrifugation, for separating the substances, you should have two components which have different densities. And what do you mean by density? Density is simply mass per unit volume. So let's suppose you have two components. The first component has density D1 and the second has density D2. Then these two densities should have a difference. Then only we can use centrifugation technique for their separation. So this is what a comparative account, a total of 9 points which you should know about suspension and colloids. I hope you got this topic. Okay. Now we'll deal with today's class last topic, that is the particles or components of colloids. We will deal with the components of colloids. Like in solution, we studied solution is made up of two components. One was solute, other was the solvent. Similarly, the solute and solvent of solution is given different names in the case of colloids. In colloids, we have two things. First one is dispersed phase. First is dispersed phase. And the next is known as dispersing medium or dispersion medium. So you know solute and solvent very clearly. Here the dispersed phase symbolizes your solute, and the dispersing medium, which we can abbreviate as DM. So DM here represents to solvent. So DM is basically what? What do you mean by dispersing medium? The medium which you take in larger quantity. And what is dispersed phase? It is similar to the solute, that is which is taken in a smaller quantity. So on the basis of different DM and dispersing medium and dispersed phase, we can divide the colloidal solution into 8 different parts. The colloidal solution is divided into 8 different parts, and these parts are based on different combinations of the dispersing medium with the dispersed phase. Okay? So there are 8 parts. So if you see, we have 3 dispersed phase, that is solid, liquid and gases. Similarly, we can have the 3 different types of medium. Here also we can have solid, liquid and gases. So what do you observe? The total table should be 3 into 3, which is 9. In this, 9 different categories should be made, but we only have 8 different categories of colloids. So why not 9? Because a gas in gas solution is not treated as a colloid. That is, when you take your dispersing medium as a gas and you insert your dispersed phase also in the gaseous state, then this becomes a homogeneous mixture. It becomes homogeneous, and because of its homogeneous behavior or homogeneity, it is included in solutions. So when gas is dissolved in a gaseous medium, it doesn't behave more like a colloid. It starts to become homogeneous and it is termed as a solution rather than colloid. Okay? So now what we'll start is the different types of colloids. The first type is, let's suppose you are taking the dispersion medium as a gas. So in the gas, the different types of solutes or dispersed phase can be, you can dissolve gas in this gas, or the second point is, you may dissolve a solid in the gas, and the next possibility is when you dissolve a liquid in the gas. Okay? So what we are dealing with, we are taking a DM, dispersing medium, to be a gas in all the 3 first cases, and then we are taking the solute as gas, solid and liquid. Hence, with the interaction of gas with gas, the colloidal solution which would result, okay, it is known, we know that gas and gas colloids does not exist. Then solid in gas, that is, it is homogeneous. It is not colloid. Then we have the remaining 2 parts. When solid is dissolved in gas, it is termed as aerosols, aerosol. And similarly, when liquid is dissolved in gas, it is also termed as aerosol. This aerosol can be asked in exam, what do you mean by aerosol, and provide some examples for it. So aerosol means when a solid is dissolved in gas or when a liquid is dissolved in gas. This means a aerosol kind of colloidal solution. Examples of aerosol, consider this gas. For example, if we take air here, give me an example when liquid is dissolved in air. When liquid is present in air, then we have the examples what? We can have fog, mist, or clouds. So these are the examples when liquid is dissolved in the gas or when liquid is dissolved in air. For the solids dissolved in air, what you can, the pollutants, the particles, okay. So for these, the examples can be the dust particles present in air, or the smoke present in air, or what we have, the smoke present in the air. So these are the solutions or colloidal solutions. You should know their perfect names. That is, solid in gas is called aerosol, and liquid in gas is also known as aerosol. But the examples are quite different. In the fog, you know what fog comprises of. Fog comprises of an air solvent, and in it some amount of water is dissolved. So air exists in gaseous state and water exists in liquid state. Similarly, we have here dust in air. You know, dust has a solid form or solid nature, and air is again a gas. So when solid is dissolved in gas, that is dust is present in air, then it is termed as aerosol. And this aerosol comprises when solid is dissolved in our gaseous state. I hope this is clear. And never include this gas in gas solution is colloid. This solution does not behave as colloid. This solution shows homogeneous nature. So this is not a colloid. In fact, it is a type of solution here. Due to its homogeneous nature, it is kept in the category of solution. So we can number this as our first category and this as our second one. Now, total of 8 categories we have to study. We have done 2 categories. Now we are left with 6 categories. And these 6 categories we will discuss in the next video lecture. I hope you understood all the topics related to today's class. Okay? Thank you, students. We'll join in the next class.